Let's kick things off today with Dustin Poirier. I can't shake the feeling that since summer, he's been writing the same thing every single week. Something along the lines of one fight, one last dance, final walkout, last showdown, closing chapter. That's it. I'm ready to say goodbye. We hear it week after week, but the truth is, he's just warming up his retirement. Once again, he said that this really will be his farewell fight. One final bout in the summer. He's got solid agreements with the UFC, and the plan is for the fight to take place practically in his backyard in New Orleans at a numbered UFC event. That's where Poirier intends to say goodbye to the fans, if everything goes as planned. According to him, he meets with the UFC every single week, discussing things, ironing out details. They're already close to finalizing something exciting for us, but for now, there's nothing concrete to announce. So, at this point, Dustin Poirier has practically got one foot out the door. I think none of us will miss his final fight. We're hoping for a great show, and let's be honest, there's no doubt this guy is a future UFC Hall of Famer. Let's move on to the other lightweights. We've got Charles Oliveira, who's been hinting that he wants to fight in June or early July during International Fight Week. He's looking for an opponent. By the way, he's in Australia right now, even training there. Oliveira is in great shape. They had a fun meetup, definitely an unexpected crew. Oliveira, Ilia Topuria, Alex Volkanovski, and even Urija Faber snapping selfies. Anyway, Oliveira is waiting and searching for a fight, and we've already heard the two matchups he's most interested in. The first option is a title fight against Makhachev. The alternative? A showdown with Max Holloway for the BMF belt, a chance to get revenge since Oliveira has a loss to Holloway on his record. Oliveira always reminds people that the loss was due to an injury. Oh, and speaking of Volkanovski, Oliveira even joked that if he had to remember who hit him the hardest in his career, he'd probably say Ilia Topuria. And yeah, as you can tell, they've already crossed paths. I always remind you guys, these fighters have some interesting encounters lined up inside the UFC cage where they'll be in opposite corners as cornermen. Let's keep going with the lightweights. According to his manager, Arman Tsarukyan is back in training. And here's something unexpected. His first session after returning is with Marlon Vera. Didn't see that one coming. Yesterday, we found out that Dominic Cruz is out of his fight with Rob Font. At 39 years old, Cruz has decided it's time to call it a career. He explained that the issue is his health. His body just can't handle the demands of such a brutal sport anymore. Just a reminder, he dedicated 25 years to MMA. In the past 8 months alone, he's had 2 serious shoulder issues. Yeah, it was a dislocation. There were complications, excruciating pain. Seems like it's not flaring up as badly now, but honestly, Cruz looks like he got hit by a truck. Just take a look. It's rough. It's a shame. No doubt injuries completely derailed this guy's career. I'm talking about his prime, not this fight with Font. As he steps away, Cruz took a moment to thank all his fans. Everyone who supported him, traveled to see him fight, bought tickets, booked hotels, all of it. Respect to him from everyone, and of course respect from us as well. He's a legend, no question. Here's what the card looks like now after Cruz dropped out. We still have Seguro versus Song Yadong, Allen taking on Hernandez, and now some top middleweights stepping into the co-main spot. Silva is facing Bagdasarian, Curtis Blades is going up against debutant Rizvan Kuniev, and Edson Barboza is headlining. Overall, a solid fight night, and even the prelims have some interesting matchups. Now, let's move on to the guys fighting at UFC 312. We all know that Kamaru Usman, along with his 2 close friends Francis Ngannou and Israel Adesanya, have always called themselves the 3 kings of Africa. They had that whole back and forth with Dricus du Plessis, where du Plessis kept saying he was the only real African in the group, based on where these guys live, train, and built their careers compared to himself. For a long time, things between him and Adesanya were pretty heated over this. Eventually, though, they squashed it. Israel gave him respect, acknowledged that du Plessis was doing great things for African MMA, and it seemed like all the drama was settled. Even Kamaru Usman came out and said that they're no longer just the 3 kings of Africa. They're now the 4 horsemen. Not the apocalypse, though. More like the African horsemen. And the 4th, none other than Dricus du Plessis. Du Plessis responded by saying he was incredibly honored to be recognized. He acknowledged that these guys are legends, some of the best to ever do it, and the fact that they consider him part of their circle is a huge deal. He pointed out how many fighters have come through the UFC, how many have actually become champions, and how few have defended their belts the way these three have. So yeah, for him, it's a massive sign of respect. That being said, Du Plessis also reminded everyone that he's very much interested in the light heavyweight division. He would love to fight Alex Pereira and is open to moving up. But unlike others who immediately chase double champ status right after winning or defending a belt once, Du Plessis is taking a much more measured approach. He believes he'll have earned the right to move up only once his home division, middleweight, is fully handled. And right now, he sees a lot of action in the division, plenty of names, plenty of matchups to make, so he's not in a rush. Someday, when there's nothing left for him at middleweight, he'll give light heavyweight a shot, but only when the time is right. Let's talk about the weigh-in ceremony for UFC 312. Every single fighter made weight: Du Plessis and Strickland, Zhang Weili and Tatiana Suarez, Jimmy Crute, Jake Matthews, and Van Kong or Van Sund, the girl who always goes for that Joker color scheme, which, to be honest, still surprises me. Her opponent, Bruna Brazil, responded by showing up in a Batman mask, and honestly, respect for that. Solid comeback. One fight was scrapped from the card even before the weigh-ins began. The matchup between Tumen Dembarel and Hyun Sung Park is officially off. That fight won't be happening. We've got a few more updates. Let's start with Jairzinho Rosenstruik. Renato Moicano had a good laugh about it, saying that if Rosenstruik got cut, even though he had 3 wins in his last 5 fights and looked solid, it must mean UFC is trying to send a message to the rest of the heavyweight division about how they should be fighting, just to keep them on their toes. As for Rosenstruik himself, he explained why he lost, and honestly, the reason is surprising. He says he inhaled paint fumes. Apparently, somewhere before the fight, he breathed in paint vapors, got dizzy, felt awful, and fought just as badly. And on top of that, he landed an unlucky strike. He threw a kick in the first round straight into Sergey Pavlovich's elbow, injured his left leg, and, as you can guess, wasn't himself after that. Rosenstruik will now be exploring other promotions and isn't planning to call it a career just yet. He's grateful to the entire UFC staff, having signed his contract back in 2018, going from Rookie of the Year to a true MMA veteran. So, we'll definitely see him somewhere else. Global Fight League? Wouldn't be surprising if he ends up there. Meanwhile, Shara Bullet's team gave an interview where they made it clear that his priority right now is his health. No matter how much his coaches want to help or adjust his training, Shara himself needs to make some changes, and none of it will work if he doesn't get healthy first. The core issue was his physical condition, so step 1 is recovery. Only after that will they talk about a new camp and new opponents. They've reassured everyone that things are fine. Mick Maynard, one of UFC's matchmakers, has already been in touch with them and offered new fights. So, Shara isn't going anywhere. Last time, we talked about Kevin Lee getting dropped hard in sparring. Now, Kevin Lee is absolutely furious because the footage got leaked. He's determined to find out who posted it. And no, apparently it wasn't the guy he was sparring with in that clip. So now, Kevin Lee is on a mission to trace the source of the leak. He says he actually could have knocked his opponent out in that sparring session, but chose not to throw the knee, didn't want to hurt him. But now, looking back, he realizes he shouldn't have held back, and he wraps it all up with a brutal line. Since these bastards decided to leak sparring footage, I'll start posting mine too. So yeah, expect some interesting content from Kevin Lee. Moving on, Diego Lopes is currently waiting for his title shot, sitting somewhere behind Alex Volkanovski in line. Lopes is also hoping to eventually face Ilia Topuria. Meanwhile, Topuria is talking about a fight with Islam Makhachev, so Lopes is now speculating on how that one will go down. He's convinced it'll be a great fight since Topuria's grappling is solid. He defends takedowns well and won't be easy to control on the ground. Lopes is certain this fight won't go the distance. He figures Makhachev might knock Topuria out, or maybe Ilia has something unexpected up his sleeve, but in the end, Lopes is picking Islam Makhachev to win. Michael Chandler made it clear he will never fight in bare-knuckle boxing. unlike his former opponent, Eddie Alvarez. That's just not for him. He didn't dedicate all these years to professional MMA just to end up brawling with bare fists. Bo Nickal, on the other hand, doesn't get why people keep hyping up Dagestani wrestlers so much. He admits they've got some incredible athletes, but in his opinion, the training methods in Pennsylvania and their style of wrestling are on a completely different level. Bo Nickal is convinced it's not even a fair comparison. What they do in Pennsylvania is simply superior, and he's confident that if there were ever a head-to-head showdown, they would run through all the Dagestani wrestlers. And finally, let's wrap things up with Merab Dvalishvili. He's made it clear that he'll be fighting soon. He's got two options, either in April or in May. He's spoken about his plans many times, and according to him, they line up perfectly with what the UFC has in mind for him. So it's going to be either a fight with Sean O'Malley or a fight with Peter Yan.